Hello and welcome to another edition of Straight from the Training Ground, the podcast where we share our love for the beautiful game and the people out in their communities doing beautiful things. This is kind of part two in a little series we've been doing lately with people who have joined us or partnered with us in the soccer neighborhood. We'll talk about that a little bit more later, but we're very glad to have Casey with us from Northern Kentucky Street Soccer. Casey, thanks for taking the time to hop on here with us.
Yeah, no problem, Jay.
So I've been following you on Instagram. We've kind of chatted a little bit online and things like that. Looks like you're doing some really great things there in Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati, Ohio area. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about, first of all, how you got involved?
Northern Kentucky Street Soccer Inc. is a 501c3 in the state of Kentucky. We operate in Northern Kentucky and also in Cincinnati, all the way up to Middletown, which is in between Cincinnati and Dayton, maybe even closer to Dayton, which is creeping up on Crew territory. That being said,
That's all right.
we organize pickup games for youth and adults. We think it's important for there to be safe places to play for the kids that are priced out of competitive or that don't have parents that want to commit to the time and travel. But also for adults, I think it's equally as important for adults. It's important for adults to have play in their life, to have healthy lifestyles. We've found that a lot of people that are new to the city, they go to Facebook and they're looking for friends, they're looking for some way to connect with the new city, and lots of people come through our pickups. The adults play Saturday at 9 in the morning. I've been organizing the adults for a couple of years now, and I think we've played every single Saturday for at least 3 years, maybe close to 4 years now. We get a lot of people that come through our game. We get a lot of international people. We get a lot of people that move within the state or within the states. So we have people that come to us from North Carolina. We have people that come from a lot of African, a lot of South American. We have Asian people too that come through our game. So it's a really diverse place. It's a lot of fun. People just drop in. We organize, first 10 people there. We start a game. And on Saturdays with the adults, we usually get at least 20, sometimes close to 30 players. It's a little too many for one court. And with the kids, it's a little more hit and miss. There's a lot of kids that play in leagues, playing futsal leagues, playing select or competitive leagues that their parents recognize the opportunity to go and play for free, to go play with kids that are different ages, just to play futsal. Futsal is super popular in Cincinnati. So we get a lot of kids from competitive teams, but we have been starting to get some local kids from the neighborhoods where we organize.
That's great.
That's very good.
So tell me a little bit also about your background. Even before that, you were telling me you have some history. You've been around the world a lot, Brazil, and kind of developed your passion for that street soccer kind of futsal vibe.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of the first generation soccer players. My dad was a coach, and he learned from VHS tapes. But we were one of the first. My dad organized one of the first competitive soccer teams in our area. I think we were second or third from Northern Kentucky. So I grew up a coach's son. I coached high school a little bit. I've coached high school a couple times, a couple different high schools. I moved to California and I coached high school out there. I lived in a small community where I made a lot of my friends and connections through the pickup game that happened on the varsity college football field on, I think, Sunday mornings at 10 is when we met in that community. And it was just a really good way to meet people. I mean, most of my friends from my time in California, I met on the pitch. I got hired by a local soccer fund to try to take a little pot of money and do something good for the community. And by the end of doing the research, we had set up we kind of partnered with after school programming that was happening in the local public schools. There were underserved schools that had after school programming that involved nutrition, which was a healthy snack, tutoring, excuse me, which education component. And then we came in and provided soccer coaches that would be the exercise or physical activity. And we set up little games for the kids to play, little scrimmages, little drills. We ended up in three schools before it was all done. And it was a really neat way to just kind of use soccer to give parents, an hour, maybe an hour and a half more to get off work and it gave the kids tutoring and nutrition and activity. So it was a really great experience. I learned a lot from it, and it all basically stemmed from some walks that I would go on in the redwoods with some guys I coached with, and we're all passionate about soccer, and we were all involved in local coaching, and we wanted to make it better for the kids. And there are a couple of good friends of mine that were real kind of they took a lot of time to be up on the research and understand the science behind it and understand how teaching little kids to control a ball with your feet is actually really good for helping you focus, helping you learn to read, helping you just be better at school. So it's way bigger than just soccer. It's way bigger than kicking a ball.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, it really all we're doing is kicking a ball, and it's not that much more than that. We come together, we self-organize, we play, we have fun, and we go home. It's been a passion project of mine since I got back to Northern Kentucky. I went from California to Brazil, and then now I'm back in Northern Kentucky. And I was floating around pickup groups in Cincinnati. There are a lot of pickup groups. The city of Cincinnati, the public school system does a really good job of leaving the varsity football fields open to the public. In the way that Northern Kentucky does allow some people to play unofficially, but the city of Cincinnati public schools has an official policy where the fields are open. And because of that, there are a lot of pickup games in Cincinnati. I floated around a lot of those and kind of ended up at Northern Kentucky Street Soccer. And I love soccer, but playing soccer in the form of futsal is by far my favorite. I love futsal. I don't know how people play futsal, and I can go back to playing 11s, to be honest with you. So I started playing with the adults in Northern Kentucky Street Soccer. There were a husband and wife, Craig and Stacy Graybo, that started Northern Kentucky Street Soccer. They had some kids, and they focused on the youth aspect of it. And there were some dads that would show up and help with the kids that wanted to play. I think they originally started playing after the kids. But in the winters, we play in a church, and I took over organizing the adults, and I just haven't looked back. Craig and Stacy came to me about a year ago and said that they're kind of burnt out, and they wanted to pass the nonprofit on to me, and I didn't think for a second.
You got elected president.
It's. I mean, I've said this to Craig in the past, but it's really I don't mean any disrespect to my parents, but it's really the best present I have ever gotten from anybody. I got a 501c3 dropped in my lap to work that works with my passion. So I love doing this. I do it way more than I probably should.
No, that's all right. Speaking of presidents.
Okay.
There he is.
I did get the gist that you're a futsal player, so I guess I can start there a little bit because I'm the complete opposite as a player.
Yeah.
Because I grew up playing outside. I did, but I'll say this. I fell in love with futsal because of how fast-paced it is. I enjoy watching futsal.
Oh, yeah.
Almost more. I can't say that. I can't say that. I'm lying to everyone when I say I love the game so much. I think they're two different games completely. And in the sense of, I think the highlight of the technique in futsal, that's what is so attractive to me because it's the tight spaces, the fast footwork.
What I like about futsal is getting hyper-focused. You can always be in the plays. You're involved in every play. The ball's usually never more than 10, 15 yards from you. So I'm a big fan of futsal. I played it for the first time when I lived in California. And after that, 11s just became boring to me.
After you've been involved in Northern Kentucky street soccer for as long as you have How have you seen it, affect the community?
Well, what's really interesting is we have a really diverse group of guys. You know, it can go from I've helped people avoid being conned, applying for jobs, and just kind of looked at websites and make sure they were legit.
Yeah.
Something that I would do for, guys that I'm friends with. The other thing that, they're sadly to say, there was one of the new member of our community was getting conned online, or not online, some kind of con where they're trying to get them to wire money or something. And he had actually asked one of our organizers for some help. And once we realized what was going on, we let him know he was getting conned, and we helped him not lose that money. So those are obviously serious, real life things that we can help people with.
Hi, Sophia. How are you?
But the little things, it's really fun. There's a huge Venezuelan community here. There's one of the largest Guatemalan enclaves in the country, which I think is really hard for people to imagine. But lots of Central Americans, and they have their own kind of thing going on in Cincinnati. The Guatemalans, Hondurans, they kind of play in their own league, separate from a well-established Mexican league that's been around for decades. Within the Latino communities, there's a lot of diversity, and just because they speak Spanish doesn't mean they're friends or they want to talk to each other, or they even have a common culture. So bringing together lots of Latinos has been really good for Latinos. It's been good for the gringos. We have lots of African guys that are new to the area that play with us, some in high school, some adults. A group of Jamaicans that come and play with us at least once a month. That's really neat. So just bringing all the people together, for me, I really enjoy it. It looks like people enjoy it also. We never really have any issues with fighting or anything like that. We have little rules where we don't slide tackle. But yeah, everything plays under control. I think because we self-organize and we don't have teams and we don't just play in like groups of just our buddies from our country, I think it makes it a little less ego.
Yeah.
That's my favorite. That's my favorite thing when we travel, is when you're playing these different nationalities, their playing style is so unique. And then when you do mix them together, you get to kind of see the strengths and weaknesses of both, and you learn, and they marinate together. And like what you're doing is so great, because like what you said, and I remember it was something I learned, with the Hispanic community, is exactly what you just said. There's each culture is so different, and they're not always speaking the same type of language, and I'm not talking about in a literal sense. And so even with that, like we have a strong Guatemalan community here in Grand Rapids that is fantastic. And that's just their flavor is they're a little bit more direct than what I would see some of the other styles that play out with the Mexicans that are playing. So that in itself is so fascinating to me.
Yeah, one of the culturally, or the anthropology of it is really interesting. I studied geography when I was in university, so the location of the field used to be my focus, putting it in the diverse communities, that kind of stuff. But really what's been neat is kind of the culture of the people. I noticed with some groups, they feel like they have to show up with 5 people and they have to play as a team. And I'd say, oh, no, we can just mix. It doesn't have to be your buddies. And not every time, but usually what ends up happening is there's 1 or 2 guys that are really into playing, and then they bring their buddies along. Yeah. And their buddies want to play. They're good players. But the guys that are really turbo will realize that they can show up all the time, and we're going to let them play. And then their buddies don't end up showing up as much.
When you guys conduct pickup, do you do winter stays, or how do you do it?
Well, it depends. We only have one court, whether we have a church that we use a basketball court in the winters. And then we commandeered a basketball court last July 4th. I've been working with. We are an advocate. We organize games, but we're also advocates. I've worked in public service most of my career, so I understand bureaucracy and how to navigate the bureaucracy. And I understand that if we don't participate in the bureaucracy, they're going to say no, or they can't say no real easily. So we go to the meetings, we tell them that we want to play futsal. And I've met with parks directors from the counties and the big cities. And every time I talk to them, they know about futsal. I'm not the first person to talk to them. I'm not the first person to mention it. They know that we need futsal courts.
Yeah.
That being said, we don't have any futsal courts. We're not pickleball. We're not as organized. We're maybe don't feel as entitled. But the good thing is pickleball has proven that people in the positions of power can get things done quickly. They can find $100,000+ to repave tennis courts and fix parking lots for pickleball people quickly. That just shows me that once we get organized, or partially as organized as the pickleball people, we go to the meetings, we ask them for we show them that there's people in the community playing, we show that the kids play, we show that the adults play, we bring together diverse groups of people. It's going to happen sooner than later. But in the meantime, I met with one of our major, biggest city in Northern Kentucky. I asked them about futsal, and basically there's a park that's going to be part of the construction project for the new bridge that's being built across the Ohio River. So this perfect park in a perfect, beautiful location with a nice hill for families to sit and watch us play, in kind of a location we can make lots of noise. It's abandoned. It's going to be a construction project. And once I found that out, once we realized that, July 4th weekend, Taylor Swift was in town, and we asked Taylor if she would help us with a futsal court. And by the end of the weekend, there were metal goals that were concreted in to a basketball court. And a day later, I called people up, and we had a couple families, maybe a half dozen people, and we painted yellow lines. And we've been playing every week that it's not snowing or raining at the court. Kenny Shields Park. It's on West 9th and Philadelphia in Covington, Kentucky. We're going to play on as much as we can because it's going to disappear. I've been talking with a couple of the local elementary schools about some programming that they have or programming that they want to have, and I'm hoping that I can be kind of like a consultant and help them navigate how to organize these leagues. I think a lot of times people assume you need to throw little kids and play 11v11 on the big field, and the research shows you'd play 5s or 7s or 9s depending on the age and stuff like that. So I bring the soccer background that once a door opens and I have the ability to see what's going on, people have been nice enough to listen to my suggestions and to want to work with us. So we're hoping that we can help. Northern Kentucky has been a lot slower than Cincinnati. Cincinnati's been really easy to organize in because of the single entity-ness of the city of Cincinnati. Northern Kentucky is really fractured. We have 3 counties and dozens of cities within a mile or 2 of the river. So every time we go into a new community in Northern Kentucky, it's like starting from scratch. It's a different mayor. It's a different city council. It's a different group of people. Cincinnati, we've been partnered with the Cincinnati rec centers. Cincinnati Rec Center has been amazing, receiving us, listening to us. They do have one futsal court in Cincinnati. It's at a CRC site, Cincinnati Rec Center site. We didn't even know about this court. It was built during COVID. And when we found out about it, we started organizing games there because there was only a futsal court in the city. There were a group of girls saw our post and they started practicing there. There's a group of Latino guys that play pickup there, and there's a group of African guys that play there also. So
I don't want to backtrack too far, but did you say Taylor Swift has been involved in your street soccer culture?
Technically, yes. There have been tweets with her name on it.
There you go. All right.
I tried to stir a little interest. Hoping Taylor would retweet me, but she doesn't. We don't. We're just in.
I'm pretty sure she watches straight from the training ground. Yeah.
Yeah.
We've talked about it. She's a big fan.
I love your energy. It's awesome what you're doing. Just keep it up. And I know the feeling of like when you have to start from scratch when you're doing new projects. I get that. But just know, you got our support is all I want to say. And
well, the wonderful thing is what we do, what I do, what Northern Kentucky Street Soccer does is there's no secret potion. We're not doing anything. We show up and we play. And the attitude is if 2 people show up today, we're gonna play
exactly.
2-on-2 or whatever.
Exactly.
If 30 people show up, we're gonna have to wait a little longer.
Exactly.
And once you get over that hump of like worried if people are gonna show up or not, the consistency of knowing 9:00 Saturday, Northern Kentucky Street Soccer is going to be playing, unless there's some major event or a holiday, perhaps we're gonna play. I have a great kind of success story. There's a gentleman that brought his daughter to our pickups in the summer at Kidney Shields Park, and he realized that we weren't doing anything special. His neighborhood of Fort Thomas has an armory with 2, maybe 3 basketball courts, and he talked to them. He organized a pickup himself. He promoted it himself on Facebook, and he had 50 to 60 kids show up his first time, and 40 to 50 kids show up his second time. So to me, that tells me, I'm not doing anything special. Anybody can do it, which is great. And the demand's out there. Kids want to play. Kids enjoy futsal. And we don't have to build a new futsal facility. We don't need private investors to come in. We just need to use the gyms in our communities. We have basketball courts. We have tennis courts. With the culture of providing free places for people to play basketball and tennis exists.
Yeah.
Does it exist for soccer? Depends on where you are in the country. The attitude is definitely different.
We appreciate it again, Casey from Northern Kentucky Street Soccer. Check them out on social media. They're doing some great things. And I think, Casey, you're just another example that, like you already alluded to, anybody out there can do what we're doing. Yep. And, it doesn't matter whether you're a small town in the Midwest, in a big city somewhere, anyone can do it. And so keep up the great work. And, hey, welcome to the neighborhood from me and Michael.
Hey, I talked with Pedro about this from Fresno about getting together, getting all the people doing this in the country together, and it took us 2 weeks to have a half an hour phone call, a couple months ago. So to see you guys having the same idea, a much better platform. Really excited.
I don't know about that, but we're trying.
Probably better platform than me and Pedro talking on the phone. And going through your Instagram and just seeing the dozens of programs that I hadn't encountered yet, I hadn't run across yet, gives me a lot of hope. Sometimes it feels like you're kind of the only one out yelling in the woods and no one hears you. So to see the dozens of other groups that have, got to the point of a Facebook or an Instagram or whatever, and out there doing stuff in the community, kudos to everybody out there doing it. I think it's great.
Absolutely, man. Well, keep up the great work. We appreciate it. Anybody out there, check out the Soccer Neighborhood, what we're all about. And like we said, anybody out there can do it. So keep up the great work, man. We really appreciate the time. And keep in touch, Casey.
Yeah, you guys have a great week.
Check out our friends at Duke Brand FC for all of your coaching needs, notebooks, and more. Visit our friends at TractionSocks.com for your grip socks.